Rap News, Street Politics, the best hood channel on YouTube. And we back with somewhat of an anomaly on the west side of South Central, where we got Tiny Diamond from A-Tray Gangster Crip and Lady J-Bone from neighborhood Rollin 60 Crip linking up and knocking down a reputable member from 60, backdooring plugs, and overall committing 4 murders in a 2-week time span in a situation where 2 historical enemy hoods get mixed up because 2 of their members want to be on some Romeo and Juliet shit while smoking Cavity. Now y'all make sure y'all hit that like button, comment, subscribe for show. We seen all the comments for the next report card. We doing the non-affiliates next. So y'all make sure y'all stay laced up for that. Now this situation isn't as far-fetched as it may seem. You know, dudes and females from the opposite side are always together. We always hear about people talking about they smacking on their enemigo, baby mama or something like that. You know, it's not entirely an uncommon thing to be playing around with the other side, but it's not always that it's your main enemy, like we see here with the A-Trays and the 60's. Now, again, it does happen, but a lot of times we'll see situations where it's like a female from BPS dealing with a dude from Mona Park. Still opposite sides, but not direct enemies. Now, the most common way this thing happens is how it happened between Tiny Diamond and Lady J-Bone. Even though there's a slight age gap between these two, they knew each other since elementary school. And that's usually where relationships and things start. Everybody had a friend or knew people that was from opposing sides that was cool in either junior high or high school. You know, when I was in high school, 2 of my closest friends was in the same type of situation. One of them being from A-Tray and the other one being from 60. Now, we was going to View Park at the time in the 60's. So as you can imagine, my boy from A-Tray, shout out to both of them. I'm not going to say their names, but my boy from A-Tray was having some issues pulling up over there, but he was still cool with the other homie from 60. So this is not something that's entirely uncommon to see something on this scale, but it is uncommon to see both of these sides link up and backdoor homies from their own set. And even if it's not a backdoor, linking up with a female from the other side and doing multiple hits with her in her neighborhood is somewhat of a rare occurrence. Now, we know how these females are. We know how they will get niggas jammed and put in a bad situation, even if they from your hood. We already know how it go down, but Tiny Diamond and Lady J-Bone did the most, and both of them just lost their appeals last month, June 2nd, 2025, on 4 homicides. Now, starting with Tiny Diamond, David Bean from A-Tray Gangster. He's currently 45 years old. At the time of these hits that took place in 2016, about 36. Now, we spoke about Young Diamond in our A-Tray Gangster Crip federal indictment video. This is somewhat of Young Diamond's older homie. Tiny Diamond is a couple years older than Young Diamond, but both of these dudes got reputable names. The Diamond name and all is a reputable name in the A-Trays. And with Tiny Diamond messing around with Lady J-Bone, he said the 60's put a hit out on him for dealing with her and playing around in their hood too much. Now, Lady J-Bone, Janelle Williams, or Gigi as some may call her, she was for show on that shit. And when everything boiled over, she went on to say she was never even put on to 60, but she's a couple years older than Tiny Diamond. She 49 now, so she was in her 40s when everything took place. She was an older Cripolette, so to speak. And even though she said she didn't fully get actually put on a 60, and she admitted to being out there playing with the Yola, the 60's clearly still had love and high respects for her as one of their own. So this is why they put that hit out on Tiny Diamond. Now, like I said, both of these two grew up together, and both of these hoods was beefing before they even crossed paths way back in elementary school. We know A-Tray 60's, countless murders between the two, an extremely active and up-to-date war still cracking between these hoods, and the beef that's lasted at least 50 years on the west side. But none of that shit seemed to matter when it's a relationship going on, you know. But in 2016, it seemed like gangbanging and drug usage took this relationship to another level that both of them probably didn't realize it would go to. So we got to rewind the clock back to July 26, 2016. So Tiny Diamond had a black Malibu that he was spinning in And this black Malibu ended up on Gage and Western at about 5 a.m. that morning. Now, Gage and Western, the perfect spot for some bullshit. Now, it's not as hot as Florence and Western, but Gage and Western, still the trifecta. Rollin 60's, A-Trays, and 6 Brims all gonna be around here. Very active area. Now, Lady J-Bone stayed on 65th between Western and Harvard, 2 blocks down from Gage, so she's familiar with this area again. 60 and A-Tray affiliates, this is the stomping grounds right here. Now, at this time, Lady J-Bone is outside the car and Tiny Diamond is sitting in the Malibu while she hollered at her old dude, Marcus Wilkerson. Now, people in the area knew Lady J-Bone as being somewhat aggressive. They said a lot of people were scared of her for whatever reason. I don't know why. But her ex was scared of her. He was dealing with a new female by the name referred to as LS in their appeal paperwork. Now, Lady J-Bone is tripping on Wilkerson for smacking on LS. I don't know why she dealing with Tiny Diamond, and I don't know why Tiny Diamond would even be around this bullshit. Her tripping on her ex-dude about him smacking on another female, you know, just a bad situation. Usually situations that involve that cavi. This is the type of shit that be going on when the smoking is involved. But at 5 a.m., witnesses over here on Gage and Western heard somebody say, "Is this how it's gonna be? I can't believe you doing this to me. And is it gonna end this way?" Before they heard a 4-5 crack off in the early morning. Now, what usually happens in the middle of the night, if it's not a grip of shots going off, 1 shot, I'm staying in the bed. If it's like 10, okay, we probably gonna go outside and see what's going on. Especially if it's like 10 in a car crash or something, we probably gonna go outside. But 1 shot, we gonna stay in the crib. And that seemingly is what happened right here. Marcus Wilkerson's body wasn't found until an hour later after this gunshot rang off by somebody walking down the street, where he was laid up under a car with a gunshot wound to his upper thigh, right by his groin. That caused extensive bleeding, and he bled out right here on Western and Gage. Now, at this time, everybody gets to talking, and LS pulls up and starts making statements to the police about how Wilkerson was dealing with Lady J-Bone, and how Lady J-Bone had confronted her at one point, saying she gonna kill her and Wilkerson if she keeps smacking on her dude. She said if she can't have him, nobody can. But this is when the folks got the first sniff of Lady J-Bone being involved in his first homicide. LS also told the police that Wilkerson told her if anything happened to him, it's gonna be because of Lady J-Bone. And another witness had came forth, a worker from Jack in the Box from around the corner, saying that Lady J-Bone had pressed her because she was being too friendly with Marcus Wilkerson, giving him free food and some more shit. And this is when she said Lady J-Bone was rolling with somebody in a black Malibu. This is now the first time that the police are introduced to Tiny Diamond's whip. Now, police ended up catching with Lady J-Bone after this, and of course had questioned her. They had seen that her cell phone had pinged off the tower that was close to the situation. She said she was over there because she'd been looking for him to make sure he made his court date because she helped bail him out in a previous situation. She said she wasn't jealous of LS or none of that, but after talking to the police and getting off, her and Tiny Diamond approached LS. And this is when Lady J-Bone pulled that same 4-5 out, and Tiny Diamond said, "Keep my fucking name out your mouth." And that she seemingly did because everything went quiet at this time. And about a week and some change later, Tiny Diamond and Lady J-Bone pull up to Imperial and Cherry at that King's Motel in Inglewood, looking to get served.
One of 2 deadly shootings in Inglewood today. The first one was at King's Motel on Imperial Highway around 2:45 a.m. That's where police say they found 52-year-old Sean Pryor suffering multiple gunshot wounds.
Now, they also had another female with them named Tiffany Doxey. Now, this is a female from Gardena. I think she went to El Camino College, and she also had ties to 79th and Normandy and 74th and St. Andrews in the A-Trays. And I think she was also dancing in the club. So she's somebody that one of these 2 know, and she took him to meet up with Sean Pryor and his wife Sandy, who was serving out of this motel over here in Inglewood. Now again, August 9th is 2 in the morning. All 3 of them walk up to the hotel room, but Tiny Diamond fall back and let Tiffany Doxey and Lady J-Bone knock on the door. Tiffany introduces Lady J-Bone to Sean and his wife, and they go inside trying to get the sack. At this time, Tiffany dips out the room and leaves Lady J-Bone in there to finish her business, where she slides some fake prop money to Sean Pryor for the cabbie. Now he's giving her change back and ends up noticing that this is fake movie money and tells his wife to get the strap because this bitch trying to play with me. The crazy part is he was pump faking. He didn't have that thing. And this is when the tussle ensues. So she trying to get out the room and he then pulled her and hemmed her up. Tiny Diamond noticed it go all bad and he come to the room and try to pull her out. Now somehow they get the door closed. Tiny Diamond ended up breaking the window and busting through the window, killing Sean Pryor, hitting him in the chest and leaving him laid down face on the ground in a pool of blood and fake prop money. Now I believe Sean Pryor was a part of the Deuces Motorcycle Club and he did have ties and stayed in Compton, I believe, in the Fruittown Pyrus. But he was the next victim to seemingly lose his life surrounding this relationship between Tiny Diamond and Lady J-Bone. Now, as you can see, it just so happened that they sitting here taking turns on murders. And one thing we have to know, they still got the same 4.5 that was used to kill Marcus Wilkerson. Now, luckily, Sean's wife wasn't hitting this situation, but she saw everything and she knew Tiffany Doxy. So as the police pull up to the motel, Lady J-Bone hops in the car with Tiffany Doxy and they follow Tiny Diamond to get away from the scene, and they end up on 79th and Van Ness, on the borderline of the families and the A-Trays. Now, mind you, Tiny Diamond did have ties to 80th Street. I believe he stayed around 80th and Dinker, and he also had recent ties to Hemet. But nonetheless, this is his hood. He's familiar with this area. So they pull up to 79th and Van Ness and pulls into a little store going ahead of Tiny Diamond. As she's backing into her spot, car in reverse, Lady J-Bone whips that same 4.5 out and shoots her in the face with a bullet lodging in her neck. Jumps out the car again while the car is still in reverse. The car then backed up into the wall, left the car running, and she runs to a vehicle that's captured on surveillance video that resembles the same black Malibu that Tiny Diamond got. Now the store, like I said, got the surveillance video. It showed the muzzle flash inside of Tiffany Doxy's whip, and it showed Lady J-Bone hopping out and getting on foot. Now, all of this transpired within 15 minutes of the murder at the motel on Imperial and Cherry. So it was very easy for the police to link these two crimes together. You got one female witness at the first scene on Imperial and Cherry describing the type of clothes that matched the female that jumped out of Tiffany Doxy's car on 79th and Van Ness. And of course, like I said, the female also knew Tiffany Doxy, who was initially a suspect turned into a victim because they wanted to get rid of her ass because she was a witness to a backdoor that went bad and Sean Pryor losing his life. Now, as police pull up on both of these scenes, Tiny Diamond and Lady J-Bone end up pulling up to Dope Boy from A-Tray Gangster Crip to cool off. Now, at this point, it said that they got a post-murderous sexual rendezvous in the shower to make sure all the blood is off them and everything, because when he busted through that window at the motel, he had cut his hand up. So they got the Dope Boys laid low, cleaned up, and proceeded back like everything was normal. And 4 days later, they find themselves in the middle of 60 hood on August 13th, 2016 on 63rd and 11th Ave. Again, still with the same 4.5 and still in this black Malibu. They pulled up over here on 63rd so Lady J-Bone could attempt to sell a cell phone to the hood mechanic. Now again, 63rd and 11th Ave, the middle of 60 hood. There's only one reason somebody from A-Tray would be over here, and Tiny Diamond understood that. That's why he stayed in the car and reclined his seat back. But as Lady J-Bone is trying to sell this phone to a dude named Jose, Tiny Tape-Off Kenyatta Thornton, 27 years old, hothead, is bailing up the street off 63rd and 11th Ave. He says, "What's up to Gigi?" Like I said, she's somewhat of an honorary member over here, and everybody knows her. He says what's up to her, and he looks at the black Malibu, and he asks her, "Who's that in the car?" She replied, "It's nobody. That's just a homie. Don't even worry about it." Now, Jose also knows Tiny Tape-Off because he fixes vehicles for him in this area. So everything is cool except for this dude that's sitting over here on the block in this black Malibu. So Tiny Takeoff decides to go check it out for himself. He walks up to the Malibu, taps on the glass with the pistol, and asks Tiny Diamond where he's from, and then proceeded to tell Tiny Diamond that it was time for him to go. He overstayed his welcome. Like I said, Tiny Diamond already alleges that the 6'0's got a hit out for him. So 100% he's on edge. Tiny Takeoff say it's time to go. You gotta get up out of here, and ends up turning his back for a second. At the time he turned his back, Tiny Diamond let off with that 4.5, and Takeoff turned around and started letting off with his 9 too. So they get into a small shootout over here in the middle of 6'0 hood, and Tiny Takeoff is on the losing end of this situation, catching a 4.5 bullet to the chest and losing his life over here, marking the 4th murder committed by Tiny Diamond and Lady J-Bone. Now, after this cracked off, Lady J-Bone said, I gotta go. She told Jose, I gotta go, jumped into Malibu, and peeled up out of there with Tiny Diamond. Now, like I said, they both start getting off, so police get to the scene looking for a gun on Tiny Takeoff. Like we see many times, before the police got there, the crowd had gathered and that took the gun and his cell phone off his body for whatever reason. Again, he seemingly was already deceased at the scene. Nothing matters, but I'm sure somebody had to come up on a little thing. But a key thing that we have to remind y'all is LAPD process when processing the ballistics. With pistols, they process those ballistics and shell casings faster than they process assault rifles. We broke this down in the East Coast indictment in that Doc Thone case. It took them years to process AK-47 rounds to match them up to other crime scenes, but they instantly will match up ballistics from pistols. So this 4.5, after this murder of Tiny Takeoff, after the ballistics testing were done, they got this same 4.5 linked to all 4 murders: Tiny Takeoff, Tiffany Doxey, Sean Pryor, and Marcus Wilkerson, all in a 2.5 week time span from July 26th to August 13th, 2016. And again, the hood mechanic, Jose, he saw the whole thing break off. So they got the black Malibu, not only at Wilkerson's murder on Gage and Western, they got it again at the motel on Century and Cherry, again on a surveillance video on 79th and Van Ness, and Jose has now placed it again on 63rd and 11th Ave. And they catch up with this black Malibu, which was registered to Tiny Diamond at the smoke shop on Florence in the A-Trays 2 days later, August 15th, 2016. So when they catch up with it, the police watch it for a little bit, see it pull into the dispensary after following it from 80th Street again. Like I said, Tiny Diamond had ties to 80th Street. So by the time it got over here to Florence, they watched what they was gonna do. As Tiny Diamond and Lady J-Bone got out the car, detectives noticed that they noticed them. So Lady J-Bone had went back into the car and grabbed her purse, and they both walked inside the dispensary. When they came out, both of them gaffled up, and they go down for the quadruple homicide. Now the next day, of course, they in that room. Tiny Diamond waives his Miranda rights and begins to make a few statements about his A-Track Gangster Crip membership, but not too much else. But when he gets in that cell, he hops on that phone, and the first person he called is Doughboy. Remember, Doughboy already know what's going on. After that double murder at the motel, they went to Doughboy's house. So he called Doughboy and told him to go check the laundry under the couch in the dispensary. So when Lady J-Bone had grabbed her purse out the car, she put the thing in there and slid the pistol into the couch at the dispensary. Now again, this is on the jailhouse call. The police beat Doughboy to the dispensary and gaffled that pistol up too. Now they got the murder weapon, the 4.5, linked to all 4 murders. Tiny Diamond also made another call insinuating that he kind of had to do some of this shit because the 6'0's was on his ass for dealing with Lady J-Bone. He said the 6'0's was hunting for him on a daily basis. But the crazy thing is, both of these two took the stand, I guess in their own defense, at their trials. But Tiny Diamond said that his intentions weren't to go after 6'0's, which was contrary to what he said on that jail phone call. He also made a phone call to his mom saying it was all Gigi fault. But again, in court, he said it wasn't the case, and he said he still loved her, regardless of the situation. Now, like I said, they both took turns on each murder. First murder was Lady J-Bone. Second was Tiny Diamond. Third was Lady J-Bone. Fourth was Tiny Diamond. And each one was acquitted of 1 homicide. So the first murder where Lady J-Bone had killed her ex, Marcus Wilkerson, Tiny Diamond was acquitted of that charge. He wasn't found guilty of participating in that murder. In the last murder, the homicide of Tiny Takeoff on 63rd and 11th Ave, Lady J-Bone was acquitted of that murder. She wasn't found to have any involvement in what transpired between Tiny Diamond and Tiny Takeoff. But nonetheless, Tiny Diamond was still convicted of first-degree malice murder, first-degree felony murder, and second-degree malice murder, and got a sentence of 3 consecutive life without paroles, plus 25 years for the assault firearm, plus 51 years to life for the firearm enhancement, plus another 6 years and 8 months, just because. And Lady J-Bone was convicted of second-degree murder on Wilkerson, first-degree murder on Pryor, and first-degree malice murder on Tiffany Doxey, because they knew she was probably gonna snitch, even though they was already caught. They didn't even have to kill Tiffany Doxey, man. They didn't need to kill nobody. Now, the only situation that I feel like was gonna go up anyway was the one on 63rd between Takeoff and Tiny Diamond. That was already an aggressive standoff, so that was probably gonna end up in some bullshit anyway. But all these other 3 victims were seemingly senseless and unnecessary homicides, man. Backdoor in the plug, it didn't need to go like that. Trying to slide the prop money. You know, she did too much trying to ask for change back. She was trying to whip the nigga over the head, trying to get the sack and some actual cash with some money that said for motion picture only on the back. If she had just got the sack and got up out of there, it probably wouldn't have went like that. But it was already going up because she was clearly tripping when she killed Wilkerson for smacking on LS. Now we know at these trials, LS took the stand on them. She knew what went down between Lady J-Bone and Wilkerson. She testified. Sandy Pryor, Sean Pryor's wife, who was there when her husband got killed in the motel, of course, she took the stand. She also said that Lady J-Bone had dropped her jacket in the motel, which was another telling piece of evidence linking Lady J-Bone and Tiny Diamond to the homicide in the motel. She also went on to say Lady J-Bone, when she was tussling with Sean Pryor, she ended up getting on top of his wife and trying to blame the whole thing on Tiffany Doxey. And when Lady J-Bone took the stand, she kind of lightly tried to insinuate that Doughboy did something to Tiffany Doxey, trying to separate herself from shooting her in the face. She said that when she went to Doughboy's house after the murder of Tiffany Doxey, she gave Doughboy the keys to the Malibu, went inside to take a shower with Tiny Diamond, and when they got out the shower, Doughboy didn't return with Tiffany Doxey. So I don't know if she tried to throw him under the bus again. But everything went bad, and both of them are seemingly on level foes, with Tiny Diamond sitting in Centinela with the LWAP, and Lady J-Bone sitting in the women's facility, again, with life without parole. And this is how the 6-0s and the 8 Trays, against all odds, linked up and committed some murders together. Now, I know this ain't the typical full gangbang style. You got some older smokers out here running wild in the streets, but hey, this what's going down on the west side of South Central, man. This is what it is. Rap news, street politics. Y'all make sure y'all hit that like button, comment and subscribe. We dropping that non-affiliate report card next. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned, stay laced up with us. We out.